Ever wondered why people from completely different parts of the world, whether in North America, Europe, or even South America, share an unexpected genetic connection? The answer lies in an ancient legacy, a genetic thread that has been woven through centuries of migration, conquest, and expansion. This is the story of Germanic DNA, a powerful genetic force that continues to shape modern populations in ways most people never realize. Germanic DNA isn't just about one country or one group of people. It stretches back thousands of years to a time when fierce warrior tribes roamed the forests and plains of northern Europe. These early Germanic peoples lived in what is now Germany, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, and they spoke languages that would eventually evolve into English, Dutch, and the Scandinavian tongues. But their influence wasn't confined to just these regions. They were explorers, conquerors, and settlers, pushing beyond their homelands and leaving their genetic imprint across vast territories. The DNA they carried held unique traits, physical and biological markers that still appear in millions of people today. Tall stature, lighter hair and eyes, and an ability to digest milk into adulthood are just some of the characteristics linked to their genetic lineage. But beyond physical appearance, Germanic DNA also played a key role in shaping the identities of entire nations. When the Roman Empire was at its height, Germanic tribes stood at its borders, often clashing with the mighty legions. But rather than being a simple story of conflict, history reveals a much deeper relationship. Many Germanic warriors were recruited into the Roman army, and their descendants became part of the empire's vast population. This meant that Germanic genes were not only spreading through war but also through integration. Then came the Great Migrations. Between the 4th and 7th centuries, the fall of Rome triggered a mass movement of peoples. The Visigoths carved out a kingdom in Spain, the Ostrogoths settled in Italy, and the Franks established what would become modern France. The Anglo-Saxons crossed the sea and shaped the genetic foundation of England. Each of these migrations carried Germanic DNA into new lands, mixing with local populations and creating the genetic diversity we see today. But the story doesn't end there. The Viking Age brought another wave of Germanic expansion. The fearless Norse seafarers, descendants of earlier Germanic tribes, sailed far and wide, reaching Britain, Ireland, Russia, and even North America. Their genes, like their legendary longships, traveled across vast distances, mingling with new populations and leaving traces that can still be found in modern DNA tests. Even after the Viking Age, the movement of Germanic DNA didn't stop. During the medieval period, German-speaking settlers migrated eastward into Poland, Hungary, and the Baltic states. Then, in more recent centuries, millions of Germans immigrated to the Americas, carrying their genetic heritage to the United States, Canada, Brazil, and Argentina. Today, Germanic DNA is found in people from all walks of life, connecting individuals across continents in ways they might never have imagined. And that's just the beginning. As genetic science advances, we're learning more about how ancient migrations continue to influence modern populations. Could your DNA hold the key to an unexpected Germanic ancestry? Have you ever taken a DNA test and been surprised by your results? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to uncover more about how different ancient peoples shaped the genetic world we live in today, stay tuned for the next episode. For centuries, Germanic DNA has quietly shaped modern populations. But what exactly makes it different? What genetic markers set it apart? And how do they connect millions of people across the world today? At its core, Germanic DNA is a blend of ancient influences, Western hunter-gatherers, early European farmers from Anatolia, and the powerful steppe warriors of the Yamnaya culture. These genetic layers created a unique profile that defines many of the physical and biological traits we see in people with Germanic ancestry. One of the most striking features of Germanic DNA is its connection to specific Y-DNA and mitochondrial haplogroups. For men, the haplogroup R1bu106 is one of the strongest indicators of Germanic lineage. It's commonly found in people from Germany, the Netherlands, Scandinavia, and even in places like England and North America. This genetic marker spread through migration, conquest, and settlement over thousands of years. Another significant haplogroup is I1, often associated with Viking and Northern European ancestry. On the maternal side, mitochondrial DNA haplogroups like H, J, U5, and T2 are frequently found among those with Germanic roots. These haplogroups trace the ancient maternal lines that carried Germanic genes across Europe, passing them down through generations. Beyond haplogroups, specific genetic traits also link back to Germanic ancestry. One of the most well-known is lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk into adulthood. This genetic adaptation is highly common in people of Germanic descent, likely a result of the dairy-based diets of early Germanic and Norse societies. Other genetic traits include lighter hair and eye colors, higher average height, and certain immune system advantages that help Germanic populations survive harsh climates and diseases. But Germanic DNA isn't just about physical traits, it has also shaped the languages and cultures of entire nations. The genetic blueprint of Germanic peoples helped define the populations of countries like Germany, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and even England. And thanks to centuries of migration, Germanic ancestry is now present in North America, Australia, and South America as well. What's even more fascinating is how modern DNA testing can reveal these connections in ways we never imagined. With the latest advancements in genetic research, people are uncovering long-lost links to Germanic ancestry through haplogroups, ethnicity estimates, and shared DNA segments. You might be surprised at just how far your own genetic roots extend. So, do you think you carry Germanic DNA? Have you ever taken a genetic test and discovered unexpected ancestry? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to stay tuned as we explore how Germanic DNA spread across the world and influenced modern civilizations. Germanic DNA didn't just stay confined to one region. It spread across vast territories, shaping populations from northern Europe to distant lands. But how did this happen? What were the key moments in history that carried Germanic ancestry far beyond its original homeland? The story begins with the migration period, a time of massive upheaval between the 4th and 6th centuries AD. Germanic tribes such as the Goths, Vandals, Lombards, and Franks moved across Europe, reshaping the continent. Some, like the Visigoths, carved out kingdoms in Spain, while the Ostrogoths ruled in Italy. The Franks, under leaders like Clovis I, laid the foundations for what would become modern France and Germany. As these tribes settled, they mixed with local populations, leaving behind a genetic legacy that still exists today. But the spread of Germanic DNA didn't stop there. With the rise of the Vikings in the 8th to 11th centuries, Germanic ancestry took another leap forward. The seafaring Norsemen expanded across the North Atlantic, settling in places like Iceland, Greenland, and even North America. They also left a lasting mark on Britain, Ireland, and northern France, where their genetic influence can still be detected. In fact, modern DNA studies show that a significant portion of British and Irish ancestry can be traced back to Viking and Germanic migrations. One of the most overlooked but significant expansions of Germanic DNA came with the Holy Roman Empire, 800 to 1806. This massive political entity, centered in what is now Germany and Austria, saw German-speaking settlers move eastward into Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary. This movement, known as the Ostsiedlung, helped spread Germanic genes deep into Central and Eastern Europe. Even today, genetic markers of Germanic ancestry can be found in populations across these regions. Then came the age of exploration and colonization, 16th to 19th centuries. Germanic-speaking peoples, particularly the Dutch, English, and later Germans, played a key role in settling vast territories overseas. The Dutch established colonies in South Africa, Indonesia, and the Caribbean, while the English and Germans became major immigrant groups in North America. Today, millions of Americans, Canadians, Brazilians, and Australians can trace part of their ancestry back to Germanic roots. Even in modern times, Germanic DNA continues to influence populations through migration and intermarriage. Advances in genetic testing have revealed surprising connections. Traces of Germanic ancestry show up in places as unexpected as Chile, Argentina, and even parts of Africa due to historical migrations. The movement of Germanic peoples has left an undeniable mark on the world. From ancient tribal migrations to Viking expansion and global colonization, their DNA has shaped entire nations and continues to connect millions of people today. Do you have Germanic ancestry? Have you ever traced your roots to one of these migrations? Let us know in the comments. And stay tuned as we explore how Germanic ancestry has influenced modern cultures and identities. Germanic DNA didn't just influence bloodlines. It played a key role in shaping entire cultures, languages, and identities. But how deep does this influence really go? And how can we still see its impact today? One of the most striking influences of Germanic DNA is language. The Germanic language family includes English, German, Dutch, Swedish, and several others spoken by over 500 million people today. But what's even more fascinating is how Germanic languages shaped others. English, for example, may have Latin and French influences, but at its core, it remains a Germanic language. Words like house, hand, father, and water all come from the same ancient roots spoken by Germanic tribes thousands of years ago. Even in non-Germanic languages, traces remain. Scandinavian influence on Russian, Dutch loanwords in Indonesian, and even German words absorbed into American English, like kindergarten and doppelganger. But the impact of Germanic ancestry isn't just in language. Cultural traditions and societal structures also have deep Germanic roots. The concept of common law, found in the UK, US, and Canada, has its origins in Germanic tribal laws. The democratic traditions of Scandinavian countries and even the structure of medieval European kingdoms were shaped by early Germanic governance. Even today, many Northern European countries retain elements of these traditions, from how leaders are elected to the value placed on personal freedom and community decision-making. Then there's physical traits. Genetic studies show that Germanic populations contributed to the spread of lighter hair, blue and green eyes, and taller statures across Europe and beyond. While not exclusive to Germanic peoples, these traits became more common in areas where they settled. A genetic marker associated with lactose tolerance, allowing adults to digest milk, is also heavily linked to Germanic and Scandinavian ancestry. The influence of Germanic DNA even extends to modern identity and heritage. Millions of people worldwide trace their ancestry back to Germanic roots. This is especially true in the United States, where over 40 million Americans have German ancestry, making it the largest self-reported ethnic group in the country. Meanwhile, in South America, German settlements in places like Brazil, Argentina, and Chile have kept Germanic traditions alive for generations. Even in pop culture, the legacy of Germanic heritage is everywhere. From Norse mythology inspiring blockbuster movies like Thor to Viking history being a central theme in books, TV shows, and even video games, the fascination with Germanic ancestry continues to grow. The genetic influence of Germanic peoples isn't just about DNA. It's about how their migrations shaped entire civilizations, how their languages formed the way we communicate, and how their traditions continue to thrive in modern society. Their impact is still alive today, woven into the very fabric of the world we live in. How much of this history do you see in your own culture? Have you ever traced your ancestry back to Germanic roots? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned as we explore the next fascinating chapter of Germanic influence on modern civilization. The spread of Germanic DNA across continents isn't just a story of migration, it's a story of transformation. How did Germanic genes reach places as far as North America, South America, and even Africa? And how did these migrations shape the people living there today? The largest movement of Germanic DNA happened during European colonization. The British, Dutch, and Germans, each with strong Germanic ancestry, were among the most active in settling new lands. In North America, millions of German immigrants arrived in the 18th and 19th centuries, settling in Pennsylvania, the Midwest, and Texas. To this day, names like Schmidt, Muller, and Braun are common in American communities with deep German roots. In South America, the influence is just as strong. Brazil, Argentina, and Chile became home to significant German populations, with entire towns preserving German traditions, foods, and even language dialects. To this day, cities like Blumenau in Brazil and Bariloche in Argentina feel like stepping into a German village. But migration wasn't always voluntary. During the Age of Exploration, Dutch and Germanic traders played a role in global commerce, including the transatlantic trade routes that connected Europe, Africa, and the Americas. While their impact was most obvious in North and South America, traces of Germanic ancestry can also be found in South Africa, Namibia, and even parts of East Africa, where German colonization left its mark in the 19th century. Germanic DNA also made its way into Australia and New Zealand, where German and Scandinavian settlers became a key part of the population. Even today, many Australians and Kiwis can trace their ancestry back to Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. One of the most unexpected effects of these migrations is genetic mixing. The movement of people across continents meant that Germanic DNA blended with local populations, contributing to genetic diversity in ways that we're only beginning to understand through modern DNA testing. Today, someone with distant Germanic ancestry might find unexpected connections in their family tree, links to Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, or even places like South Africa or Argentina. The legacy of these migrations is still visible today. From Oktoberfest celebrations in Brazil to the strong Dutch presence in South Africa, Germanic heritage continues to shape cultures worldwide. And with DNA testing more accessible than ever, millions of people are uncovering their own Germanic roots, often in places they never expected. So, could your ancestry be more Germanic than you thought? If you've taken a DNA test, what surprises did you find? Let us know in the comments, and stick around for the next chapter in this journey through Germanic DNA's lasting influence. On the surface, Germanic DNA might seem like just another genetic marker. But what if it influences more than just ancestry? What if the genes passed down from ancient Germanic tribes still shape the way people look, how their bodies function, or even how they behave today? One of the most noticeable traits associated with Germanic ancestry is lighter pigmentation, blonde hair, blue or green eyes, and fair skin. These traits have long been linked to populations from Northern and Central Europe, where Germanic peoples once thrived. The genetics behind this comes from a combination of ancient Western hunter-gatherers, Indo-European steppe migrants, and early Germanic tribes who carried variations in the OCA2 and HERC2 genes, which influence eye and hair color. But these traits didn't spread evenly. Even within Germany today, the percentage of people with lighter features varies from region to region, with northern areas showing stronger Scandinavian influence and southern regions blending with Alpine and Slavic genetics. Beyond appearance, Germanic DNA has been tied to height and build. Studies have shown that Northern and Central Europeans, descendants of Germanic populations, are among the tallest in the world. This may be due to genetic factors inherited from steppe ancestors, like the Yamnaya, who were taller than the Neolithic farmers they mixed with. These height-related genes, combined with centuries of high-protein diets, helped establish the height averages we see today. But it's not just physical traits. Germanic DNA also plays a role in health and immunity. Certain genetic markers common among Germanic descendants offer protection against diseases like tuberculosis and the plague, possibly due to historical exposure to these epidemics. On the other hand, studies suggest that people of Northern and Central European descent have a higher risk of autoimmune diseases, like type 1 diabetes and multiple sclerosis, due to an overactive immune response, something that may have once been an evolutionary advantage but now contributes to modern health challenges. There's also the fascinating link between genetics and lactose tolerance. While most of the world's population becomes lactose intolerant after childhood, Northern and Central Europeans, including Germanic populations, have some of the highest rates of lactase persistence, meaning they can digest dairy products into adulthood. This trait, traced back to the early adoption of dairy farming in Germanic and Celtic regions, has influenced both genetics and culture. Just think of the dairy-heavy diets in countries like Germany, the Netherlands, and Scandinavia. And then there's the question of behavior and personality traits. While culture and environment shape people far more than genetics, some studies suggest that populations with high Germanic ancestry show greater tendencies toward organization, pragmatism, and individualism, traits often associated with Germanic cultures historically. Could these be linked to certain genetic predispositions? It's a topic that scientists are still exploring, but it's clear that the legacy of Germanic ancestry extends beyond just names and heritage. It might influence how people live, work, and even think today. So, how much of your identity is written in your DNA? Do you see these traits in yourself or your family? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and stick around as we continue uncovering the deep impact of Germanic DNA on modern populations. For centuries, Germanic DNA has spread far beyond its original homelands, shaping the genetic makeup of modern populations across Europe, the Americas, and even parts of Africa and Asia. But how did this happen? And what does it mean for people today? The first major spread of Germanic DNA came during the migration period, circa 300 to 600 AD, when tribes like the Goths, Vandals, and Saxons moved across Europe, settling in places like Spain, Italy, and North Africa. These migrations permanently altered the genetic landscape of these regions. Even today, Spanish and Portuguese populations carry small traces of Germanic ancestry, despite being predominantly of Iberian and Mediterranean descent. Then came the Viking Age, 800 to 1100 AD, The Norse expansion, deeply tied to Germanic ancestry, left genetic footprints everywhere from Britain and Ireland to France, Russia, and even North America. Studies show that up to 6% of British DNA is Scandinavian in origin, largely due to Viking settlements. Meanwhile, in places like Normandy, Viking settlers mixed with the local French population, forming the Normans, who would later conquer England in 1066, further blending Germanic and French genetics. But the spread of Germanic DNA didn't stop in Europe. In the 17th to 19th centuries, Germanic-speaking people, especially Germans, Dutch, and Scandinavians, became some of the most significant migrant groups to North America. Today, around 50 million Americans claim German ancestry, making it the largest self-reported ethnic group in the U.S. The genetic influence of these immigrants is also seen in Canada, Brazil, Argentina, and other regions where German and Dutch settlers arrived. Even outside the Americas, Germanic DNA traveled through colonization and trade. Dutch settlers in South Africa created the Afrikaner population, which still carries a strong Germanic genetic influence. In Asia, European colonial rule brought Germanic DNA to small communities in India and Indonesia, where traces remain. What's fascinating is how this spread of Germanic DNA has influenced not just genetics, but also languages, cultures, and traditions. English, the world's most spoken language, is a Germanic tongue, and many customs, from Christmas traditions to legal systems, have roots in Germanic cultures. So, whether you have clear Germanic ancestry or just a small trace in your DNA results, you're likely connected to a much bigger story, one that spans continents and centuries. How far do you think Germanic DNA has reached? Let us know in the comments.